We're joined now by Lord Victor Adebowale, CEO of the charity Turning Point, and a non-executive director of the Co-op who helped to commission this report, and also by Katie Massey-Taylor, a mum who found having a baby so lonely that she set up an app to help herself and others find friends. And from Westminster by the Conservative MP Maria Caulfield, who is a former nurse and member of the Women and Equalities Committee. Let's start with you, Katie Massey-Taylor. Just tell us, what did you experience that led you to set up this app, and what happened?
So I was amazed by how lonely I felt when I had small kids. They're very long days by yourself, and your loving husbands and friends, they go off to work, and you've got long days to fill. And I found it really hard to meet friends nearby who had kids the same age and shared the same interests. And in fact, it was a chance meeting with another mum in the playground that kept me sane during that whole sort of period of having small kids. And we thought it shouldn't be chance encounters that lead mums to find other friends nearby. So let's do something about it. So we raised investment to set up an app. It's a free app called Mush. And it's very simple. You can find mums nearby with kids the same age. And 35,000 mums have signed up to it since we launched in April, with very little marketing spend at all. So, I mean, the need is there. And we're thrilled that we're making such a difference. We've been described as a lifesaver by various mums, which is fantastic.
Maria Caulfield, this is actually something which hasn't been often publicly discussed on this scale. I mean, does the government recognise that there is a problem of loneliness in this country?
Well, I think the problem is underestimated, and I think that I really welcome the report because both as my experience of being a local constituency MP for quite a rural area, I come across a lot of young mums who've given up work to have children or they're on maternity leave and do feel completely isolated and come and see me as their local MP for just help and advice on some very basic issues. But also from my experience of the Women and Equality Select Committee, we recently conducted a report on maternity discrimination, and some of these very themes came through quite strongly. And I think we were quite surprised by that. So this is very important research that's been done, and we do need to act on those findings.
Lord Adebowale, what is staggering in your report is this estimate of 9 million people in Britain feeling lonely.
Yes, I think we are the lonely capital of Europe, as the Telegraph pointed out in one of its articles on loneliness. And, you know, when I looked at the work that the Co-op had done, we talked to, 5 million members, 70,000 colleagues, 35% of our members knew someone who was suffering from chronic loneliness and isolation. And, you know, it's a very powerful cause of depression. I know from my work at Turning Point that it's also a predicator of mental illness, substance misuse, and the work that the Red Cross is doing is with the Co-op is identifying this as a real community need.
You see, one anticipates it possibly in somebody who's socially disadvantaged and badly housed or whatever, but that actually middle-class mums, you know, are suffering in large numbers.
I think it's interesting. I've just come from a conference of health visitors, and they will tell you that isolation and loneliness amongst young mothers is a huge predicator of mental illness, and it crosses all classes. Loneliness and isolation in key points in life. So becoming a mother, becoming a student, leaving home, retirement, elderly, these are all sensitive points at which loneliness and isolation can begin.
Well, Katie, Maria Caulfield spelt out what her own committee has begun to do in terms of looking at the problem, but what would you want the government to actually do, and should the government do anything about it?
Well, look, I mean, we know midwives and health visitors do a great job, but they're, you know, spread thin, and I suppose, you know, recommending services like ours as real solutions to find people that they can, you know, peer support network. It's really because actually loneliness it's the trigger to get out and about and meet people and interact, and that's quite often, you know, can do the job of.
But as well as the app, do you not need an agent in the community? I mean, perhaps more community nurses. I mean, many more to start tackling and bring people together.
It would be fantastic to have more, of course. I think a combination of the two would.
Well, let's try this on you, Maria Caulfield. I mean, nobody wants to hear that they want more public servants, but the truth is that it sounds as if communities in Britain do need much more support.
Yeah, Absolutely, and as a former nurse, I know the difference that can make. And in the 1001 Critical Days report, which is a cross-party report that looked at early years, one of the key recommendations was more health visitors and more midwives to provide that initial support and to provide social support for women who are often on their own. And we know it's the first few years are often the toughest because you've lost your work network, your child's not yet started school, and so you're very vulnerable at that stage. So definitely health visitors are needed to support women who find themselves in this situation.
Katie, I mean, the online world is not necessarily the best place to find company, in the sense that a lot of mothers complained actually that it was partly because part of their lives was online and not actually touching people.
No, and I understand this feeling that lots of people are having a better time than you. You see it on social media. I think the important thing is that you've got to find tools like ours that help to facilitate the offline meetups. It's not about spending your time communicating online. It's about finding mums around the corner that you can talk to. And that's exactly what our product does.
Victor, what will you be pressing the government to do? After all, you've got that prime position of being able to move around in the House of Lords.
Well, yes, some say. I think it's about recognition in the first instance. This is a serious problem that requires government. It's not just about more nurses, although more nurses would be good, and it's not just about young mothers, it's about the elderly, it's about the young. So it is about more, but it's about and. So 9 out of 10 of our members, co-op members, think that the community groups can play a part in this, and the co-op has, 3,750 stores, we have a funeral service, we work with people who are bereaved. But I think what the government needs to do is recognise this as a social issue and build it into their commissioning of services across the piece. Health, social care, education, policing crime.
The problem is that it is about the fact that we've become a more mobile society. I mean, I don't know how near your family live to you, but probably not very near. But here you have communities where granny, grandpa, etc. are miles away.
All the more need for this kind of recognition that people do become isolated. We're talking in the elderly, 3/4 of elderly people are chronically isolated and lonely. So we need to recognise it's an issue precisely because of what you've said. We need to ensure that public services play their part, but the government needs to encourage organisations like the Co-op, Red Cross, Turning Point, to work with the public services.
Just briefly, Maria Colwell, do you intend to keep with this particular problem? Will you be pressing the government on it?
Absolutely, I agree with all those points, but particularly for young mums, one of the key findings that we found was that although shared parental leave came into force last year, it's not been taken up, and it's often young mums who are left staying at home with their children, and actually if there was more of a sharing of that responsibility, it would at least break some of that cycle. And dads aren't taking up that offer at the moment, either because statutory maternity pay is too low, or because there's still a stigma about taking time off to have children. So absolutely, we need to follow this up, and I'm so pleased that this research has brought this problem to light, because I don't think enough people know that problem exists.
Maria Caulfield, thank you very much indeed. Victor Adebowale, thank you for producing the report, and Katie, thank you too very much for talking to us. Kathy.
That's all from us tonight. That's Channel 4 News. Good evening.